Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and welcome to my lifestyle and baking channel. If you are new here, I actually started with a Disney channel, which I will leave linked down below for you as well. And I have started a lifestyle and baking channel here recently because that is my background, especially in baking. So today's video is going to be all about a Super Bowl dessert. This is actually part of a collab hosted by Wendi over at Happiness and Sweet Tea and includes a lot of other channels that I know from the Disney side. So I'm gonna leave all their links down below so you can go see what sorts of foods and just creative ideas they came up with for a Super Bowl party. So today I am covering cake. That is my wheelhouse. So we're gonna be doing a very simple cake design, and it's going to have a little bit of a twist to it so that, you know, you just have a little more fun and a little more pizzazz as part of your cake. Again, if you are new here, I would love for you to consider subscribing and turning those notification bells on so that you don't miss out on future lifestyle and baking content. So as you're going to see in front of me, I have 3 cakes laid out. I did bake 3 8-inch cakes, and I used a leveler to cut each of those to the 3-inch mark. I wanted my cake to be a little bit taller than normal, but not overly tall, so I've got them all separated here. So what we're actually gonna be doing is creating a section where sprinkles will basically explode out of the cake when it is cut into. I thought that feels very celebratory at a Super Bowl party. You know, when your team maybe wins at the end, you cut into the cake, everybody hangs out. So the very first thing that I want to do is create a space for the sprinkles to go. One of these layers we want to leave alone because it's going to kind of hide that within the cake, but the other 2 we need to actually cut a space for the sprinkles to go. So I have taken the liberty with this first layer here to go ahead and use some buttercream to adhere it to the board. I chose this gold board because I thought it would give a little bit more pizzazz as we are, you know, serving this to guests. So the first thing I want to do is use a circle cutter to create that crevice. So I do have this Atco cutter right here. It's called number 14403. In case you guys are looking for it, you can tell it's a little more deep set, so it's going to really cut well. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of center this on my cake, cut this section out, and then we're gonna have to very gently kind of remove this here. All right, there we go. We have this section of cake we are gonna set aside. You can have a snack, you know, I'm not gonna tell anybody, or you can actually toss that part away. So now we have this sort of gap in this layer. Now I did set the other layers on boards, so they're gonna be a little bit stuck to them. I would recommend working with your cake cold out of the fridge because it's gonna make this whole process easier. I did not do that. I decided to film in the middle of the night. So here we are and we are going for it. So I only need to cut the circle out of 1 layer here. So I'm gonna just kind of loosen this one up, because the thing is, once I cut and it has this space, it's gonna be a little bit harder to transfer. So we're gonna have to be very, very careful. All right, there's my little petit-four cake that we have now retrieved out of this one. And now the challenge comes, which is we are going to attempt to move this. We do wanna actually go ahead and ice so that we can attach these 2, and then we can attach the top layer. So I'm gonna grab my turntable and we're gonna start this process. Okay, so I grabbed my turntable and we are ready to go. I do have a very heavy double-sided turntable. I believe this was by Atco, A-T-E-C-O, or it could be a Tico, I can never remember, but I believe that is who made this. I absolutely love it, and a really good turntable is gonna make everything easier. We're going to be doing a crumb coat here in a second. If you're unfamiliar with a crumb coat, I'm gonna leave a link overhead and down below where I talked about that on my other channel before I sort of transition things over here, because it is basically going to be a first layer of icing that's gonna lock our crumbs into place so that when we come in to get that nice, pretty finishing coat, that we no longer have to deal with the crumbs. So it's definitely a first step that you're going to want to take before moving on to a second coat of icing. You'll want to let that kind of get crusty and feel a little bit dry to the touch, and then you can add the second layer of buttercream. So I do have a homemade buttercream here. It is in white. I am going to end up having this cake green, so normally I would do both layers in green, but I needed some white for something else. So I made 2 batches. I'm gonna use this first because I don't need a lot of it for the decorating, but I would again recommend doing green just to, you know, make it a little bit easier on yourself. So I'm going to just very gently, doesn't have to be pretty, I'm just gonna kind of slap some icing on this layer here so that we have something for the next layer to attach to. And if you find that icing cakes is difficult for you, you are going to get a lot of tips in that video on crumb coating as well. So definitely head on over and check that out. Okay, so now we're gonna transition this ring and kind of line it up. Again, be very, very careful because it's going to be very fragile not having the center of that cake. And then you want to give it a fair little push. We want to get rid of any air pockets between the two layers. And now I'm going to grab a paper towel. I'm going to kind of clean this center out a little bit so that we can make room for the sprinkles. Okay, so you see I've got this giant bowl of rainbow sprinkles here. I kind of mostly put in the rainbow sprinkles, but then I added a smattering of like different shapes and just fun confetti style sprinkles because it'll make it that much more colorful and fun. So now that we have this spot, I am literally going to just pour sprinkles in. That worked out just about perfect, and that was 2 of the jars of standard sprinkle size, and then I sort of had a mixture from Wilton with a bunch of different sprinkles in it, and it was almost that whole thing too. So a lot of sprinkles, but doesn't that look fun? It is gonna be really, really fun when we cut into this at the end. And of course, if you wanted to, you could buy individual sprinkles and do team colors. You could decorate the cake, you know, for a specific team as well, but since I don't know what your team is, we're gonna keep it generic on the outside today, but it definitely is a fun pop to add your team's colors on the inside of the cake. So the next thing we're gonna do, now that we're already here, we're gonna go ahead and ice this layer and add the next one on top. And now it's time to finish our crumb coat on the outside of the cake. Okay, so now that our crumb coat is done, we're gonna wipe off all this extra on the board while it is still fresh and easy to get off, and then we're gonna let this crumb coat layer set, harden, and then we will come back and add our green icing. Okay guys, so now that we have our cake set aside and the crumb coat is crusting over, we can be doing something in the meantime. We're gonna be making a football out of chocolate just to give it a little extra something on the top. This is a very 101 tutorial slash project that we're doing here, and I think it's gonna be really easy for you to achieve. So I have grabbed some melting chocolate. I have Ghirardelli white melting wafers, and then I have milk chocolate candy wafers here. The thing about candy wafers is they are ready to go, ready to be melted. When you use regular chocolate, sometimes when you melt it, it can seize up. You actually have to add an additive called Flow Coat to help thin it down, or at least that's the easiest way to do it. So it's really nice to have these chips as an option because they're ready to go for you. So we are not gonna need a whole lot of white chocolate, so I have a smaller ramekin for that. And I've got a larger ramekin for the chocolate. I also have 2 icing bags ready to go. One has tip number 8 on it and the other has tip number 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pour some of the brown chocolate wafers into this larger ramekin. You can see I've got a fair amount in there. And now I'll add some of the white Ghirardelli to the smaller size. If you have never worked with candy wafers before, when you melt them in the microwave, do 30 seconds at a time and stir 30 seconds at a time until they are smooth. Same thing, you can get some weird sort of seizing and heat spots if you don't, so just a little at a time until it is completely smooth. I put the milk chocolate in the piping bag that has tip number 8 on it, and I put the white chocolate in the piping bag that has tip number 3. Just a word to the wise, chocolate when it is melted is very runny. It's going to want to come right out of those tips. Let it cool down just a little bit so that it's not so difficult to work with. And when you fill the bags, have it on a paper towel because some of that is going to run out. So now I do have a coated 6-inch board. You can use whatever size you want, but we are just going to be making a football. I'm going to do an outline with the white chocolate first, and then I'm going to fill in with the brown and then let it cool a little bit. And then I'm going to add the striping for the football. Now that I have the general shape of my football, I'm actually gonna pop this in the freezer for a minute to allow it to harden up a little bit quicker, and then we will add the striping. and now that we have the striping on our football, it's gonna go back in the fridge. All right, so the outside of our crumb coat feels dry to the touch. That is what we want to go in with the second coat of icing. I've got my green right here. So now we are going to go a little bit thicker on the outsides of our cake. I'm gonna kind of just reconstitute my icing here, and we are gonna go for it. All right guys, so I'm not gonna go any further on smoothing because we're gonna be putting so much grass on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe the excess green off of the board. If there is a little bit just kind of close to the cake, it's okay because we're gonna be putting grass down there as well. Now the first thing we wanna do for this cake is start with an icing bag with tip number 233 or a grass tip on it. And if you've never used a grass tip before, it's good to have a practice board nearby where you can just kind of try this out. You're gonna squeeze, let go, and kind of lift up and off. And you can make the grass stand up higher if you like. Totally depends on what you want your grass to look like. We are just going to put grass on the entire top of this cake. All right guys, so now that I have grass all over the top of my cake, the next thing I wanna do is make the yard lines. I'm not gonna do every single yard line because it's not that big of a cake, but I will kind of carry it around the sides of the cake. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I'm also not gonna do anything special to make sure that this is a perfect straight line in terms of measurement or anything like that. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna start and make a line straight down the center of my cake. If you have never done lines before, today I'm using a tip 3. And if you actually lift up and away from the cake just a little bit and let the line fall, it will allow you to guide it in a more straight line versus, you know, trying to draw it onto the cake. We want to give it a little room. So I'm gonna start on the edge of the front of my cake here and just allow the line to fall. All right, so now that I have the base lines down on the top of the cake, I am going to allow them to fall down the sides of the cake and match up to those lines as well. All right, so now that our cake is iced, I have taken the football out of the fridge. I am going to very gently and easily slide it off of the board, and we are going to top our cake with this football. All right guys, so we have completed our 101 game day football cake. You can also stand the chocolate football up and like actually, you know, dig it into the cake if you want that 3D effect. I've laid it flat. Today we are gonna be cutting into the sprinkles, so I've laid it flat. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a close-up and then we're gonna cut it. All right guys, moment of truth. I'm going to move our football just a little bit and we're gonna cut right in the center and see what happens. Yay, it's perfect. Look at the sprinkles falling out, guys. How fun is that? Super, super cute. So you've got that nice element of surprise. And again, if you had your team colors in there, that would be awesome. You could do one for each team so that you had, you know, you were able to cut whichever one won the Super Bowl. And there you have it. Very simple DIY 101 cake. All right, so that has been it for this game day Super Bowl cake idea. I hope this is a fun and easy DIY for you guys. Thank you again so much to Wendi at Happiness and Sweet Tea for inviting me to this collab. And don't forget to check out the other participating channels down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and definitely stick around for more lifestyle and baking content here on this channel. I will see you guys in the next video and have a great rest of the week. Bye.